Hallo und einen wunderschönen guten Nachmittag hier aus Neu-Delhi. Mein Name ist Bernd Andersson, ich bin der stellvertretende Wirtschaftsdelegierte hier im Außenwirtschaftszentrum Neu-Delhi. Ich freue mich sehr, Sie hier bei unserem Webinar zum Thema The Future of Mobility in India begrüßen zu dürfen. Das Webinar wird auf Englisch stattfinden. Wir hier im Außenwirtschaftszentrum unterstützen Sie aber natürlich gerne jederzeit auch auf Deutsch. Good afternoon from New Delhi and good morning to all the listeners in Austria. My name is Bernd Andersson. I'm the Deputy Trade Commissioner here at the Advantage Austria office in New Delhi. It's a great pleasure to welcome you today for our webinar named The Future of Mobility in India. Allow me, please, next slide. Allow me to give you a brief introduction on our topic first, but that will be followed by expert speakers giving presentations from their respective fields. We're very happy that we have a lot of local knowledge collected here today. Something that will be shared as well during a panel discussion where we'll open up the floor as well for Q&A. So feel free, as this is a live webinar, to always ask your questions during the chat or in a dedicated question box. Of course, if we have sparked your interest, you're always welcome to reach out to us or to any of the panelists afterwards to get your questions answered. Quick introduction before we start on the specific topics, who we are, what we do. Well, the Advantage Austria office is here located in New Delhi, but we also have an office in Mumbai and one in Bangalore. And in addition, we also take care of other markets here in South Asia, namely Nepal, Bhutan, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, and the Maldives. And our main purpose is to support you, Austrian businesses doing business in the region, while doing research, finding potential business partners, and also connecting you with local stakeholders. India is Austria's third largest trade partner in Asia. We have around 700 plus Austrian companies that regularly do business here, and we have around 150 Austrian companies that have some form of presence here in the market via a subsidiary office. So today's topic, the future of mobility in India, is an exciting and rapidly evolving field. With rapidly growing population and urbanization, there's an increasing demand for an efficient and sustainable transport solution. So the Indian government has set ambitious goals for the adoption of electric vehicles and is investing in an infrastructure and incentives to support this transition. Accordingly, advancements in technology such as autonomous vehicles, ride-sharing services also have the potential to revolutionize the way India moves. There are, however, also some challenges to be addressed, such as the congestion and air pollution, and ensuring accessibility to all of the local citizens. So overall, you can see it's quite the interesting topic, and I'm very happy to be able to provide some insights on the many questions and challenges we are facing here today. And so without further ado, I hand over to our expert in the innovation sector and our moderator today, Mr. Ajay Singh.
Thank you, Bernd. Good morning for the audience in Austria and good afternoon to the ones joining from India. Thank you very much for joining this webinar, Future of Mobility in India. My name is Ajay Singh. I am the Senior Advisor for the Startups, New Corporates, Science, Technology and Innovation here at Advantage Austria, New Delhi. So first we start with the Government of India's target of 30% electric vehicle by 2030. And the automotive sector contributes approximately 49% of India's manufacturing GDP and 7.1% of India's GDP. Today, we are in discussion for the future of mobility. Mainly, we will be discussing transformation, technology, trends, and how Government of India and corporates, as well as startups, are leading the India growth story. You will listen to a large range of insights from the expert today. Without further ado, I would like to call upon Ms. Arishna Saxena and Mr. Keshav Daga, Manager, Invest India. Can you please come on board? Invest India is the national investment promotion and facilitation agency that helps investors looking for investment opportunities in India and overseas. Over to you, Ms. Arishna Saxena and Mr. Daga.
Thanks, Ajay. Can somebody present our slides, please? Yeah, I can see it now. So good afternoon or good morning, everybody. It's a pleasure to present here and be a part of this webinar. Before we begin, I would like to spend 2 minutes and give a brief introduction about Invest India and what we do. Next slide, please. Yeah. So Invest India, like Ajay also mentioned, is the Indian government's national investment promotion and facilitation agency. We work under the aegis of Ministry of Commerce and the Department for Promotion of Industry and Internal Trade. The auto team in particular works with the Department of Heavy Industries. The mandate of Invest India is twofold. First is to promote India as an investment destination, where we apprise global companies such as you guys of the various relevant policies and incentives. And the second part is investment facilitation. So once the global companies have decided to invest in the Indian market, we at Invest India support them in their investment cycle here as their relationship manager. Our role is to guide companies throughout the investment cycle, pre, during, and post. The main mandate is to bring ease in doing business in India. This would include finding you a JV partner, advice on state and central policies, negotiating incentive packages with the government, location assessment, where we can advise you basis your plans which state would be best suited, providing land packages in those states, so on and so forth. We are the only organization in the entire Indian government which is basically owned by both central government as well as almost all the state governments. And we are extremely closely working with all of these government agencies. In that sense, our team is also well connected with the entire auto ecosystem and would be happy to assist any company looking to enter the Indian market. Next slide, please. Next slide. Thank you. Yeah. So not going to spend too much time on this, but just a quick overview of the auto industry as on date. We recently became the 4th largest automotive market after China, USA, and Japan. And very recently also became the 3rd largest passenger car market in the world. We are also the largest producers of 3-wheelers and tractors globally, and 2nd largest when it comes to 2-wheelers and passenger vehicles overall. In 2012, the automotive market was 5% of the total GDP, whereas in 2020, it is at 7.1% of the GDP. Now, in the last decade, this sector has received almost 6% of the total FDI inflow into India, half of which has come in the last 4-5 years itself. The auto industry is expected to reach US $300 billion by 2026, and as you can see, our sales are recovering quite well post-COVID. This industry has proven to be one of the most resilient industries of all in India, and we are currently moving towards a record-breaking sales for financial year 23. In the month of November or December itself, we were close to selling 4.3 million vehicles. As is the case globally at the moment, the auto sector is naturally transitioning into the EV sector, and our government and auto industry is aligned in achieving this goal. Next slide, please. Yeah. Okay. So as you can see, the Indian EV ecosystem is at an initial stage right now in terms of numbers. However, when it comes to the involvement of industry stakeholders, almost every auto OEM and supply chain company, along with relevant ministries and associations, are deeply involved in this transition. Most of the Indian auto players have either released or announced the release of their EV products. As you can see on the slide, that in the last 3 to 5 years alone, we have received almost 3 billion as funding for EV startups, of which $1 billion has come in 2022 itself. Official figures state that there are around 1.5 million EVs on the road as at December 22. However, this number is increasing exponentially on a daily basis. The CAGR of this industry was 49%. As we can see, the EV market in India is expected to grow multifold, and we are expected to reach $202 billion in the next 8 years. Now, the reason for this is that there are various growth factors that align with the EV industry. If we speak of the startup ecosystem, Along with the traditional OEMs slowly announcing their EV plans, innovations are also rapidly happening at a startup level, and this has proven to be a strong growth driver for the ecosystem. India has more than 200 startups in this space who are bringing in new innovations and new technologies daily. Even growth of last mile delivery services and delivery startups such as Zomato, Swiggy, Amazon has been momentous to contributing to the growth of this sector. And more delivery partners have pledged to convert to 100% of their fleet to electric. Another factor is the rise of pollution in the metropolitan cities in India. And the consumer mindset is evolving daily, and more of them want to move to a cleaner energy resource to live a better life in the coming years. Another major factor includes government initiatives such as the benefit and taxes for customers, state and central initiative schemes, which we will cover in detail. Next slide, please. So this is just a brief roadmap to policy. As you can see, the seed for EVs was planted around 2005. However, the sector took flight mainly in 2019 when FAME 2 was brought on. FAME 2 created a much required demand for EVs, and we will understand this policy in detail later on in the presentation. Next slide, please. Yeah. So the Indian government is again taking steps to boost the EV ecosystem in India. The growth of this industry requires coordinated efforts from all the related ministries together. The Ministry of Heavy Industry is the nodal ministry for auto and EV, and it has released several key demand and supply side incentives, which we'll cover next. For setting up the requisite infrastructure, Ministry of Housing has released building bylaws to incorporate charging stations in residential area. The Planning Commission of the Government, Niti Aayog, has released battery swapping policy. And to cover end-to-end execution of EV infrastructure, Ministry of Environment has released the battery waste management policy to encourage companies to set up battery recycling infra. Next slide, please. I would now call upon Keshav to discuss these policies in detail. Thank you.
Thank you, Arishna. So now that Arishna has briefly talked about the industry and policy landscape, I'll dive a bit deeper into some of the key policies and talk about them in detail. So I'd like to start with the production linked incentive scheme for ACC, Advanced Chemistry Cell Battery Storage. The scheme is focused on helping bridge the demand and supply gap for EV batteries. So with the ambitious government target to electrify the mobility industry in India, there was a need to push the battery cell manufacturing industry. And for this particular scheme was launched by the Ministry of Heavy Industries and Niti Aayog with a budgetary outlay of around $2.5 billion, which are supposed to be given out as incentives over a period of 5 years. This scheme aims to develop local manufacturing capacity of around 50 gigawatts per hour of advanced chemistry cell and 5 gigawatt hour for niche advanced chemistry cells. The current finalized capacity is already 30 gigawatt per hour. The scheme particularly will, attract investments of around $5.5 billion. This program is created in a way that makes it independent of technology. So the beneficiary firm is free to select the most appropriate modern technology together with the related plant, machine, and raw material, etc., to set up a manufacturing facility that can accommodate any application of cells. The incentives for this scheme are to be.
1 second, sorry. Keshav, 1 second. Ajay, I think you're on the wrong slide. Could you please take it 1 slide behind? Yeah, thank you.
Yeah,
that's it.
Sorry, I didn't notice that. Sorry. So this particular scheme, the incentives are supposed to be paid out over a period of 5 years, beginning with the manufacturing facilities commissioning. The scheme will result in economies of scale and help increasing exports while also assisting major domestic and foreign manufacturers, in establishing a competitive ACC battery setup in India. The bids under the schemes were evaluated using a quality and cost-based selection approach, where the selection process considered both the subsidy provided by the bidder and the value addition that was supplied. The minimum investment for this particular bid is around to the tune of $31 million per gigawatt hour, which is to be done within 2 years of allotment of the bid. In the Q2 of 2022, can you move back to the previous? I'll let you know, Ajay. Sorry. Can we go to the previous slide?
Yes, sure.
Yeah, thank you. I'll let you know when we have to
need
change
to
it.
be
Sorry.
in the time limit. So you have 3 minutes now. Thank you.
All right. So we have already selected 3 companies for this particular team, which is about a combined capacity of 30 gigawatts per hour. We can move on to the next slide. The second production linked incentive scheme that I'm going to focus on is the PLI for automobile and auto component manufacturing. This was launched again by the Ministry of Heavy Industries with a financial outlay of $3.6 billion as incentives to promote domestic manufacturing. This scheme is in 2 components: champion OEM automobile component and champion OEM manufacturing component. So it is open the existing automotive businesses as well as new investors. The champion OEM incentives also open to segments of battery electric and hydrogen fuel cell vehicles. While the component champion incentive scheme applies to advanced automotive technology vehicle component, which includes completely knocked down, semi knocked down kits, vehicle aggregates of 2-wheelers, 3-wheelers, and passenger vehicles, etc. Till now, under the scheme, the government has received 85 applicants, 65 in the component category and 18 in the auto OEM category. Aside from commercial groups in India, we have got applications from Germany, Japan, UK, US, Korea, etc., and so on and so forth. Can you move to the next slide? Government of India launched a slide above that. Yeah, Government of India had launched the National Electric Mobility Mission Plan in 2020, which aimed to provide a vision and roadmap for faster EV adoption in the country. Under this scheme, the FAME policy was launched, which was the fast adoption and manufacturing of electric vehicles, which has an outlay of around $1.3 billion to incentivize the buyers. These upfront incentives are a measure for reduction in price. The current phase, which is ongoing, will support around 7,000 electric buses, 500,000 electric 3-wheelers, and 55,000 electric 4-wheeler passenger vehicles, including 1 million electric 2-wheelers. The eligibility to avail incentives under the scheme is for advanced chemistry battery equipped vehicles that meet the minimum technical requirements. The FAME scheme has accelerated an already alluring TCO proposition, the total cost of ownership proposition for consumers. Prior to this, the TCO parity for 5 and 10 years period was already reached in India. Can you move on to the next slide, please? Next slide. There are two major. So the major industry cluster for the automobile segment in India is in the north, west, and south of the country. Major players such as Honda, Suzuki, Yamaha, and so in the north, as you can see, and other players such as BMW, Hyundai, Kia, Peugeot, Piaggio, etc., are in the southern of the country. If you go to the next slide, Ajay, for EVs, the major clusters you would see is in the southwestern portion of the country, where you have companies like BYD, Piaggio, MG, etc., and Hyundai. If you go to the next slide, we can see that the major players and startups engaged in building the Indian EV ecosystem on this slide. While you can see a few recognizable names such as Tata, MG. The majority of names in both upstream and downstream areas are new companies and startups. So India has an evolving EV ecosystem with a growing CAGR of 49%. And with current favorable policies, the industry is expected to reach $202 billion by 2030. So just in case any of the participants of the webinar today are looking for investable opportunities, including startups across India, we at Invest India can sound you of the right Indian opportunity when it comes to e-mobility, about what sorts of policies are there, overview of the market expansion these past few years, opportunities that are shaping the EV value chain. If you go to the next slide.
Sure. Mr. Daga, unfortunately, we have to discuss this in panel discussion because we are running late. So thank you very much for your presentation. Now, I would call upon Mr. Nishant Arya, Vice Chairman, JBM Group, to come forward and kindly make the presentation. Over to you, Mr. Arya.
Yeah, good afternoon, everybody. So happy to be here today to share my perspective. And just giving you a brief perspective on JBM in a couple of slides. So we are about 40 years old group and more than a couple of $1 billion, and across the EV ecosystem, which is our core strength. So electric vehicles, EV charging, and EV aggregates, amongst a few other areas. So yeah, we can move to the next slide, please. So we are having a global presence, and Europe is our largest market after India. So multiple production facilities for our key technologies across Germany, Czech, Hungary, Spain, Turkey, and many other markets in North America, Africa, and China as well. Next slide, please. So just to give you a future mobility overview, as we all understand today that more than 14 of the 20 most polluted cities in the world are in India. And one of the biggest contributors towards pollution is transportation. And I think what COVID has done well for all of us is that all of us have understood the kind of responsibility we have towards the environment, which each one of us needs to contribute to. And therefore, the climate change becomes a major area of focus for all of us. Next slide, please. So the global EV landscape is very clear that in multiple global markets, whether we look at Europe or India or the global markets, EVs are enhancing their penetration in a big way, and multiple new product launches have given the opportunity across different kind of electric vehicle segments for customers to choose these vehicles. And clearly the percentage is increasing of the new energy vehicles to be EVs rather than hybrids, as we see in the global market. So we look at the EV ecosystem, how India is there today vis-a-vis global peers, because you just saw in the previous slide how Invest India has showcased on the subsidy front and the incentives. I think over and above that, what is most important today is the kind of charging infra availability, the supplier base, and the access to financing, which in India is still limited. Definitely, a lot of actions are being taken, a lot of things are being done, but to become the major force to reckon with as a EV transition, which we are looking forward to, I think a lot more needs to be done. A lot of expectations all of us have from the upcoming budget, as well as the steps being taken by innovative modes in the coming months. So I think that is going to be a big game changer for the Indian market to really see the kind of scale with opportunity we have to proceed further. Talking about buses, I think with every bus, the kind of pollution which is reduced, the kind of infrastructure requirement goes down, and the kind of road space which is optimized is a totally different perspective, which is very clear to all of us. Next slide, please. There are certain key enablers, so we've understood the policy support. I think the vendor ecosystem is very important for key power electronics, for batteries, for battery controllers, motors, and these are areas of opportunity where local and global companies can clearly partner and work with each other, and that's what we are doing as a group. And in the charging infra space, how different kinds of fast charging or swapping or other kind of solutions are applicable today, I think, for giving the same kind of operating experience to customers what they're used to with the fossil fuel based vehicles, and nonetheless affordability, whether with total cost of ownership or the upfront price, which is reducing year on year as higher level of localization and scale is being achieved. I think total cost of ownership, in my opinion, is one of the biggest game changers vis-a-vis ICE, where we see a clear perspective vis-a-vis fixed cost, operational cost, and the variable cost. And a lot goes in where the customer really sees, especially in the commercial vehicle segment for taxis, three-wheelers, or even buses. For commercial applications, what is the cost per kilometer, where things really need to revolve around the customer value proposition based on energy efficiency, whether we look at lightweighting, how we are configuring maybe not the best in class, but the most optimum powertrain considering the Indian environment, system efficiency, and how we are optimizing and removing the parasitic losses, how we are understanding on what routes the vehicle have to move, so that it's a really customized vehicle. It's not a standard vehicle which is flying on different routes clearly. So I think that is what the Indian consumer is looking at today. The penetration across all segments, if I look at different vehicles in electric buses today, is less than 1% and in total population, but in the next 3 years to 4 years, I think we are looking at about 25% of new buses to be electric, and you can see that in all other categories also. But I will focus primarily on the EV ecosystem and buses today here, and in the future of mobility, because the future of mobility, even what FAME concentrates on, is for the common man and for how majority of vehicles people can use this electric mobility solution, where the asset utilization is the key. Next slide, please. I think technology roadmap is very important. How technology can drive value in such cases. When we see a 8 to 10 year roadmap from today, we see that in terms of the drive architecture, how we see the hub production motors, e-axles, or we're looking at certain permanent magnet motors. We are talking about the WBG in terms of the inverters as we go along, higher motor power, better range, no range anxiety. There are multiple chemistries where a lot of work is going on. It's not a exhaustive list, I would say it's illustrative, and what kind of energy density is going out and battery capacity, how we can use different modes in the kind of climatic conditions we have, road conditions we have, the driving patterns people have. I think all these things play a very important role. So a local and global solution, I think a global solution is what is most important here, how different companies can collaborate. We have tried to see how we have brought about 25 to 30 different global companies to India using their global solutions by not reinventing the wheel, but giving a customized solution based on the local market. Next slide, please. Just a perspective about like how we as an organization are committed to about 1 billion e-kilometers, and we are one of the few companies already who have clocked more than 50 million e-kilometers till date with different platform of vehicles. Next slide, please. And different applications, whether city buses, school buses, tarmac buses, staff application, which we have launched and we are dealing with on a regular basis. Go ahead, please. And then on different airports who are utilizing such kind of things and are really looking forward to green solutions, green mobility, subscribing to SDG goals, ESG goals on a constant basis. Next slide, please. So I think the operating model is very important in case of electric buses and the public transportation, which is 90% of the usage of the whole. Can you go back to the previous slide? So 90% of the whole country today. So larger packs lead to less passengers because the weight of the vehicle is fixed, and smaller packs leads to more passengers because with fast charging at depots, terminals, on the go, a lot of things can be done. What you would see is a way of life in Europe as well. And that's what we try to bring to India when we pioneered the electric mobility in public transportation about 7 years ago. So moving forward, there's some examples of different cities who have adopted such kind of solutions. Go ahead. Like in Ahmedabad, they have deployed hundreds of buses. This is one of our electric bus depots, how things are being planned meticulously and deployed, and Ahmedabad is a benchmark in that category. Go ahead. Similarly in Bangalore, so Western class cities in Delhi, where charging, batteries, vehicle, everything is taken care of. Yeah, go ahead. I think the electric bus architecture is very, very important when we look at it, and that is where the role of power electronics, motors, key aggregates, battery, BMS, HV, software, hardware, firmware becomes so critical. And I think that is where we need to see that how companies can collaborate and look at things from a global perspective, things which have been done, the lightweighting, low cost materials, energy efficient materials from the longer term in different kind of environment conditions, how things can happen, how energy efficiency can be enhanced, how we are able to see that software capabilities being brought into our country specific for EV because we are a software IT powerhouse, how around EV things can be developed further. Yeah, go ahead, please. On EV aggregates, we see the battery technology roadmap, what I was referring to partially in the vehicle technology roadmap, how the energy density is going up. We are looking at about 500 watt-hour per kg in times to come, more than 8,000 cycles for not LTO batteries, but lithium ion, whether it's LFP, LMO, NMC, and many other chemistries today. Similarly, in the LTO conditions, in the kind of climatic conditions in India, plus the kind of usage patterns where you're charging multiple times a day, and if I take one cycle a day, kind of an average with that 10,000 cycles eventually, I think these are certain things which are very important in solid state, and the sulfur batteries also bring in that kind of a thing. And where BMS becomes very important, how the bidirectional usage of batteries, thermal management, the charging ecosystem, the pre-charge, the insulation monitoring. I think these are very critical aspects where opportunity lies, where a lot of good work is being done by multiple companies. Multiple key features on the cell safety, the high voltage safety, the balancing strategy, how time to market can be reduced, and leading to perfect battery packs whether for bus batteries, three-wheeler, two-wheeler, and in India now ESS market, the energy storage systems is becoming very large, where that becomes very essential. And last but not the least, in the battery and the power electronics and the aggregate spheres, the telematics. So how remote diagnostics and how do we have the ongoing data element being recognized? Like in our case, we have about 2.5 million data points, which we analyze per bus per day. And clearly that gives us an edge because we have real-time understanding of each and everything which is there in this case. And clearly we are able to address with remote diagnostics more than 95% of the issues. And I think that is what brings in a very high level of comfort for our customers, and where such tools become very critical.
Mr. Arya,
Yeah.
2 minutes.
Yeah,
Thank
sure. I have last couple of slides. Please go ahead. You've jumped one slide in the middle, I think. Go back, not ahead. Yeah. After this, yes. So the charging ecosystem becomes very important because energy generation, remote diagnostics, grid monitoring, management of fleets, along with the ecosystem. Yeah, go ahead. Next slide, please. So here, the clean energy, energy storage, charging infra, and all types of electric vehicles. That's our ecosystem, EV ecosystem approach. Where from, and if you go to the next slide, that explains it even more in detail, which talks about well to wheel. So from the oil well to the vehicle wheel, generation to consumption, everything is green. This is an example of a classical bus depot which we create, where the bus depot and the surroundings of the bus depot and the infrastructure around it and admin is using all solar power. And we are able to see whether it's auxiliary power or it is for energy generation or energy storage, and the other facilities around it are all using green energy. And I would like to end it on the next slide. Our approach is think global, act local. How are we able to bring best-in-class solutions, keep bringing both together and giving solutions? Thank you. Would be happy to answer any questions later on.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Arya. We see each other in panel discussion. And from government to corporates, and now we move to the amazing startups and learn how they are gearing up for the future of mobility. We have today with us Mr. Vilas Deshpande, co-founder and COO, Vayve Mobility. Over to you, Mr. Deshpande.
Thank you, Ajay. Good afternoon and good morning, everyone. So I am from Vayve Mobility. And what we have been working on over the past 2 years is trying to look at the core of what are the requirements for urban mobility in tier 1, 2, and 3 cities in India. And what this brings out is a very basic requirement that people have. People need safe, convenient, and comfortable ability to move within the city. And these are typically solo or duo trips that they make within the city, and that range that they cover in those trips is actually not very large. It's about maybe 30 to 40 kilometers every day. What the industry has offered to folks so far is a choice between a small entry-level hatchback or a two-wheeler. The small 5-seater hatchback typically ends up with a 5-year TCO of about 900,000 rupees. A two-wheeler is definitely much cheaper with a 5-year TCO of 200,000 rupees, but there is a vast difference in the quality of mobility that people get with these. And what we found through a lot of consumer discussions and research is that there is a need for a new option between these two choices. And what we have to present now, we have shared in the Delhi Auto Expo, which ended last week, and received an amazing response from both the industry as well as from consumers. What we bring to you here is a modern electric mobility solution. What we have here is a four-wheeler, which is a narrow body vehicle. We have named it EVA. The key for being successful in the market is to have a stylish, easy driving and connected vehicle. So we have brought that through a lot of effort on the design and styling of the vehicle. We are bringing a lot of capability with the vehicle. So we have with the battery in the car a 250 kilometer range, which is more than enough for a week's worth of travel. We have a small footprint and a narrow body, which allows us to really maneuver through traffic and find parking easily. There is typically, like I said, solo or duo travel in cities. So we have optimized the size to have 2 adults and a child. And we are bringing the two choices of charging at home with a 4 hours home socket, or with less than 1 hour in a fast charger. But we also have brought a really amazing innovation here, which is to build in solar charging. Next slide, please. So what we have is really a new to the world concept, but that's something that's always been in the back of everybody's minds, particularly in a sunny country like India. Why is it not possible to make a material contribution to driving range through solar power? So what I described earlier is a maneuverable narrow body, which also makes it extremely efficient in the use of electricity in energy to wheel. And then when we are adding a 150 watt solar panel to the roof, we are actually delivering 3,000 kilometer solar charging capability. Now, if you remember, I said typical driving range is 30 to 40 kilometers. That actually ends up being about 1/3 of people's requirements, as long, obviously, as they have access to keeping the vehicle in the sun. But this is a material contribution, and we are very proud of that achievement, and we actually brought it to the market as India's first solar car. So the efficient use of infrastructure, energy, and resources, that's what we're trying to achieve here. Next slide, please. The concept is very attractive, which we found in actual reactions in the Delhi Auto Expo, which had over 600,000 visitors and a huge amount of people that came through our expo booth. As you can see here, office goers, college students, the homemaker, or and retiree all need the capacity or the capability that a small vehicle brings for their city commutes. Next, please. Now, what I showed you in the earlier slide were pictures of Indian families, but you could easily substitute that with families in the global south or in Europe, because this is a global opportunity. This new category of personal mobility is really finding a huge response and a draw from the market across the world. And I've shared here a McKinsey report where it shows clearly that people are thinking through what used to be just one use of a vehicle. Now they're wanting to do much more with a very specifically designed vehicle for urban transport. And in my last slide here, I'd like to share this. Obviously, we all understand electric vehicles provide a huge amount of help on Sustainable Development Goals 13 and 3. But really, what we can deliver is really the last group at the bottom, which is a very efficient vehicle. So energy use is maximized. Materials per car is minimized. We only have a 550 kilo curb weight, and the lithium use, which is a critical resource, is also quite a lot smaller than most vehicles available on the road. And at the bottom, there is a huge socio-economic element, which we can help bring by having access to urban mobility across the family. So gender equality plays a role there, as well as across a socioeconomic strata in the society, which allows them to develop the country, or us to develop the country, much faster. So that's all I have here. I'm happy to answer questions later.
Thank you, Mr. Deshpande. This was very interesting. And now we have a different perspective on batteries of all these amazing cars. And we are happy to be joined by today with Mr. Hiren Pravin Shah, co-founder and CEO, Replus Engitech. Over to you, Mr. Shah.
Thank you, Ajay. Good morning, everyone back there in Austria, and good afternoon to everyone here in India. I will talk about Replus Engitech, which was a startup, and now it's a part of LNG Bhilwara Group. We are a battery-based company. May I request to go to the next slide, please? So I'll be giving a brief introduction about the company. We will also talk about innovation. We will talk about the ecosystem and our vision. What are our initiatives to meet those vision, to facilitate the ecosystem, and what is the sustainable future ahead? So before that, let me give a brief, next page please, about our introduction. So I started this company in 2019, and last year we had a joint venture collaboration with LNG Bhilwara Group. Basically, we are coming up with a gigawatt-hour factory near Pune, where we are going to make advanced cell chemistry, agnostic lithium-ion batteries. We will be making all types of form factors. We will be making battery packs for stationary storage as well as e-mobility sector. Next page, please. So this is the background. Actually, we are coming up with a very high-end module and pack assembly line where we are agnostic to cell chemistry. We can make battery packs of different chemistries of LFP, NMC, LTO, and going forward, we'll also incorporate solid state. The location is near Pune. It's around 45 kilometers from Pune. To start with, we will be going with a fully automatic manufacturing facility with a capacity of 1 gigawatt hour. And this will be operational around April or May time in this year. We have a vision of expanding this capacity by 2025 to 5 gigawatt hour. So the vision is basically to create sustainable value for customers and communities across the world. And mission is to enable global transition towards clean energy. The way we look at storage is basically, to be very honest, we start from the generation side because we feel it doesn't make sense to use an electric vehicle and charge that vehicle using fossil fuel or thermal power. So right from the generation side, we make solutions which go into renewable energy, renewable integration, where we stabilize the grid. We basically move the grid from polluting environments to clean and green environment, to the transmission distribution, and also at the consumption side. So as we know that EV market is basically packed with a lot of innovative solutions, and we see two-wheelers, three-wheelers, buses, trucks, with various forms and designs. So we are agnostic. We can make any type of form. We can make using cylindrical cell. We can make using prismatic cell, and we can fit into all innovative types of form factors. And basically, also as it was, just go back slide, please. We also saw in the previous slides that people talked about the BMS and the advancements of the BMS technology. So we have in-house development of BMS, EMS, and telematics. Not only that, we go one step ahead, and we will be incorporating machine learning and artificial intelligence to enhance the quality and life of the batteries. So we are designing lightweight packs, which will also contribute in making lightweight vehicles and thereby giving extended range. Next page, please. So here is the e-mobility EV ecosystem, and what we find is basically there are a few bottlenecks here. Of course, there is a lot of traction happening on the OEM side. There's a lot of manufacturers who have gone ahead with the manufacturing of electric vehicles, and it will be used for personal, public, as well as for fleet transportations. However, we feel that the grid is one of the bottleneck. So here is where we come into picture. And this is in the next few slides, I will explain what we are doing. And also on the EV battery eco space, we feel that, of course, there is a PLI scheme in place, but until and unless the raw material ecosystem is established, we may not be able to leapfrog, or we may not be able to jump up to catch up the demand capacities of the EV industry. So this is how the structure is, and this is our vision of how we want to contribute towards the mobility sector. So we start from the generation side. We are working on various technologies, and we have already done successful implementations of microgrids as well as renewable integration with clean energies like solar, wind, hybrid of solar and wind, and also hydro. So we have done successful pilots where we have put in our systems, and thereby we can increase the size and the capacity of generation of these renewable sources, which are clean sources of energy. At the transmission and distribution side, we can have various functions like contractual demand, meeting the peak demand, storing the solar energy into the batteries and using it as and when it is required. And on the consumption side, we are working on the battery packs for e-mobility sector. So this is how we are contributing. This is how we are contributing to the complete ecosystem for e-mobility. This is the picture of the plant which is coming up, and it will be operational in the first quarter of 2023. These are the products which we have already developed. We have a two-wheeler battery pack, we have a three-wheeler battery pack, and currently we are working on the bus battery pack. I would also like to share that our sister company, since we come from the Bhilwara group, they have a sister company called Hindustan Electrode Graphite, and as a part of our responsibility and also as a part of our contribution to the e-mobility sector, we will be coming up with a manufacturing plant which will make graphite anodes. So irrespective of what is the cell chemistry, it can be LFP or NMC, or even for that matter move to LTO. The anode always remains as a graphite material, and we feel that graphite is one of the important component in establishing the EV cell manufacturing and the EV manufacturing ecosystem in India. So as our contribution, we have announced.
Mr. Shah, 2 minutes. Thank you.
Sure. So we are coming up with a graphite anode plant, which is in Madhya Pradesh. Capacity will be 12 gigawatt hour, and investment for this plant will be 2,000 crores. We go to the next slide, please. So that's all from our side. We'll be happy to take any questions going forward in the panel discussion. Thank you, Ajay.
Thank you, Mr. Shah. Thanks all the speakers for the wonderful presentation. I'm sure people listening to you all over Austria and other parts of the world would be benefited with your expertise. I request audience to feel free to ask questions via the chat function. I will make sure to pass it on to our speakers during the Q&A session. And now the time for our start the panel discussion. I'm honored to join by Ms. Arishna Saxena, Mr. Keshav Daga, Mr. Nishant Arya, Mr. Vilas Deshpande, Mr. Hiren, Pravin Shah, and Mr. Sumit Dhanuka, founder and managing partner, Precog Innovation Partners. Please turn on your camera and microphone and we will start our panel discussion. To all the speakers. Mr. Arya, can you please turn on your camera and microphone, please? Thank you,
Yes.
and a warm welcome to all of us here. And the question, future of mobility looks like in India. I would like to ask Mr. Nishant Arya first. What is the future of mobility looks like in India in terms of public mobility or mass mobility, since we have a huge population in India to address to? What do you think would be the first and most sustainable mode of transport, and what is the future of it?
Today, if I talk about public transport, so there are more than 1.8 million buses in India. And today, as a country, our penetration is less than 1 bus per 1,000. And if we look at all the developing, many other developing nations like Brazil, which is comparable to India in certain ways, and they are also our partner in BRICS and other initiatives which we have taken. They're at 1.5 to 2 buses per 1,000, and in most of the other countries, like Seoul is on the other end in Korea, where everybody in the whole city can be in the bus at the same time, which is 10 buses per 1,000. So if I take at 1.5 to 2 as the right number, so that means that 50% augmentation is required for getting to the right number of 1.5 buses per 1,000, which takes us to 2.7 million. Because of COVID and many other reasons in the last few years, the number of buses have not been replaced, and many old buses are retiring which need to be replaced. So on the replacement market also we see almost 40-50% opportunity. So clearly the number of buses on road is the opportunity of about 1.5 to 1.8 million in the next 8 to 10 years, which we can really bring forward. So, and today 90% of the people in our country use different forms of public transport for any day-to-day requirements in different parts of India, whether urban, semi-urban or rural parts of the country. So that clearly demonstrates that we have to bring in the best form factor with respect to the pollution, environment, affordability and safety. Therefore, electric buses are bound to grow, and in most of the cases, the STUs or the private operators do not today have the wherewithal or the bandwidth to do this, and therefore, many companies are coming up to give a holistic EV ecosystem solution like ourselves. So I think that is going to be a game changer and a differentiator when you're working with the end consumer, where they're able to see that they're working and looking for a need which they have or a choice they are making. So we always want to see that this is a choice they make and not the need which they have, which they are getting addressed by using this mode of public transportation.
Interesting. What is your take on that from Mr. Daga and Mr. Bansal from Invest India, from the government's perspective? What do you think on the future of mobility looks in India?
I think we both can take it, Abhishek and me. It's very rightly what Nishant said. I would agree with a lot of points. The Indian government, has been actively working towards promoting the electric vehicle through various policy measures. Right from 2005, when the first automotive mission plan was launched, which worked on the automotive segment. Then since then, 2010, the Ministry of New and Renewable Energy came up with their own scheme, and then 2012, the National Electric Mobility Mission was launched. So again, there is a lot of policy impetus that's going in, which and ambitious targets that the government has, which are definitely which will be met by industry support as well as joint collaboration work. I feel the current lack of charging infrastructure is one of the sectors which is which is a very low hanging fruit because of the less utilization rates. Again, it's a chicken and egg problem which would have to be solved first. So the charging infrastructure, I feel, as to give you an example, Delhi government is kind of spearleading this. They have plans to establish around 18,000 public charging units by 2030. So that's kind of a very high number to aim for, for a particular territory like NCR. Again, if various states have come up with, various different policy measures to kind of incentivize both the demand and supply side of it. Various ministries are playing its role. So again, to sum it up properly, I think it's the transition time that's required. We are as TCO is not a biggest problem right now. It's the infrastructure, and it's also the regulations around the current ecosystem. So I think we will get there faster. Yeah.
Sure. For Mr. Dhanuka, what do you think about the future of mobility in India? Your views on that?
Yeah. So, yeah, am I audible?
Yes.
Hello.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. So I think the way we see it is that I think the future of mobility will get charted out by some of these leading technology companies who end up innovating every single day. We operate on cross-border technology tracks, and we see that essentially the entire fundamental of cross-border co-creation will be the name of the game as far as bundling technology from across the world, targeting commercialization zones in the India market is concerned, because India presents a phenomenal landing ground for a commercialization of a lot of these technologies from a market standpoint. And with the challenges that we are seeing with the geopolitical situations as far as China is concerned, it creates a massive opportunity to bundle a proposition of manufacturing and supply chain, where India can essentially build products and technologies for the world. So therefore, there are two pieces where, on one side, India being a landing ground for commercialization of a lot of such technologies which are more low cost and essentially getting created frugally in India and then made for the world. And therefore, possibilities of the strengths of the larger companies and co-create with the early stage companies who bring in both product, technology, and business model innovation. I think that's how we see the future getting created, through co-creation as the key pillar per se, innovate on technology and business model fronts.
Interesting. Mr. Deshpande, now we talk about buses and public mobility, and your solution is maybe on a personal level, a single person car or two-person car. What do you think about, or your views on the future of mobility in India?
So what I believe in is that the future of mobility in India has been and will continue to be multimodal. So there is no one solution that meets everybody's needs all the time. And what electric drivetrains allow is specific vehicles for specific purposes. So in the case of larger vehicles, a trend in the market is to push larger and larger vehicles to consumers. And it's not that those are not needed, But there may be cases where using fleet vehicles or shared mobility for large vehicles, when you need to travel between cities or you need to take a large family from point A to point B in the city, you may be able to get vehicles like those through shared mobility solutions, and then keep a much smaller vehicle at home for your daily use. And then, of course, you would rely on public transport where it's available and it's reliable, because that is obviously the most efficient way to move a lot of people quickly. So multimodal is definitely the solution. And being a small vehicle manufacturer, what we see is a huge need to optimize for the roads and the infrastructure that we have. There's increasing congestion on streets, especially in urban areas, and we need to be having options available for people to choose something that can move quickly, reduce their inconvenience and the loss of time that they experience getting stuck in traffic. So that's really where it all comes together. A multimodal future is where we are.
That's an interesting proposition. Like, yeah, I mean, we always believe in collaboration, and this kind of collaboration would be interesting. When we talk about a lot of electric mobility, we always keep the fact that battery is the one who powers everything here. What do you think in terms of battery innovation, keeping in mind the innovation in mobility or future of mobility? Your views, Mr. Shah.
Thank you, Ajay. So yeah, I mean, very rightly said that battery is going to make things move in the mobility sector. A couple of things that come to my mind now that awareness and the maths is very clear in the minds of the consumers that electric mobility is commercially very much viable, and so there is no need for push to be given to facilitate or to drive e-mobility sector further as far as EV demand creation is considered. I think now the need of the hour is basically to facilitate the ecosystem, to facilitate advanced cell chemistry manufacturing in India. I have a question for the Invest India guys, that what happens to the 20 gigawatt hour which is remaining and available? Will that be awarded to any Indian manufacturers, or what will happen to that? Secondly, is 50 gigawatt hour under the PLI scheme enough? Because I feel the market, if you have to reach 30% penetration of EVs by 2030 or 2032, then the demand is 350 gigawatt hour. So 350 gigawatt hour, how we can co-create that kind of a manufacturing base in India? And for the first time, I feel there is an opportunity for India, because there is some technology which will leapfrog us into the global scenario. Earlier, this space has been dominated by Europeans and Japanese manufacturers. For the first time, there is something which will require software, a combination of software, hardware, and a know-how of cell chemistry, which I think we guys are very good at. So, opportunity-wise, we are extremely at a very good space. From here, where we go, will define how we will perform in the future.
Sure. That gives me a chance to ask another question, another round of question to all of you. Hydrogen, electric, or more? What is next? Because we are working on simultaneously many technologies. Maybe I go to Mr. Arya first. What do you think about the next technology should be looking at?
I personally believe that all the technologies would coexist, because today electric is where it is after a transition of last 5 to 6 years, and what got us here will not get us there without the involvement of hydrogen, and we'll have many fuels electric vehicles in the future as well. And definitely I personally feel that hydrogen would be more applicable in commercial vehicles and heavy applications, and in certain other kind of fuel areas where today as a country we are looking to transition. So I think a combination of electric, hydrogen, and some areas even CBG, compressed biogas, a combination of all three would actually eat into the diesel and the petrol market which we have today across vehicle segments, two-wheeler, three-wheeler, four-wheeler, and looking at the kind of charging infrastructure penetration which is increasing, the kind of battery technologies where the energy density is going up. We are seeing the number of cycles are improving, the safety standards are going up, and slowly we would become more inclusive and circular economy in our country as well, where the utilization of lithium would go down, and many other chemistries and minerals. Like for example, if I take example of lithium metal polymer, so metal and polymer are in abundance in our country. where the consumption of lithium also gets reduced and minimized to a large extent, and many more such technologies, because I don't think one technology can suffice, because it's also application based, and the kind of whole architecture of the vehicle and the ecosystem which is designed accordingly, whether we look at fast charging, slow charging, or swapping. And in case of hydrogen also, the good part is that we have a good gas economy, and when we are looking at energy security, it also serves the purpose on energy security. And today we are looking at about 15% energy drive from the gas segment. So I think the whole ecosystem on generation of hydrogen and the transportation in India could become a global leader there in EV and hydrogen, catering to global requirements, because the kind of scale which we'll have for our local requirements in India, I think will give us that enormous strength of sustainability for the longer term.
Sure, perfect. Since you have to leave, I'll just ask another question to you. The startups in Austria or companies who would like to partner with JBM Group, what are the opportunities for Austrian or European companies to work with your company, or are there any initiative you would like to share?
Sure. So we are doing a lot of things. Like we have more than 3,000 people in Europe alone today in JBM, and clearly we see that many companies would like to work with us within Europe. So we're working a lot on the battery technology, power electronics, software, hardware, firmware, AI, and on the other side, in terms of many aggregates, we are creating global supply chain partners in certain areas, even operating partners for mobility solutions, financing partners in multiple areas, and even new materials and low-cost solutions, automation in India and global markets, because we are present in the Middle East, Europe, and North American markets. So we are looking for local and global solutions. And today we have more than 25-30 partners from Europe. So we're very open and very comfortable with European technology, whether for local markets or global markets, and in different form factors, whether through technology tie-ups, joint ventures, equity, investments, multiple ways and means we have partnered with companies all over the world. So happy to look at any such opportunities. Thank you.
Thank you. For Invest India, the same question goes, since you are keeping an eye on the market, what is next, hydrogen, electric, or something out of the box now?
Thanks, Mr. Singh. So as Mr. Arya mentioned, I think all of these are going to coexist. But what is happening is the sort of policy support which was given to electric mobility, that's now being replicated for hydrogen. In fact, there was a meeting at Gadkariji's residence 2 weeks back, where we had invited the industry and key stakeholders from the government. And a lot of suggestions have been taken from that meeting. And, you know, the idea is to give push to hydrogen powered vehicles as well. But we see it more from a commercial vehicle point of view and less from a passenger vehicle point of view, at least in the next decade or so. And also, I think Mr. Shah asked a question about the remaining 20 gigawatt hours, which is left from a PLI ACC point of view. I think when we were looking at applicants, there was no discrimination which was done between domestic and foreign applicants. I mean, Rajesh Export, Solar Alliance, they're all Indian companies. So the remaining 50 gigawatt hours is not going to be enough. Already there is, I think companies are setting up plants with cumulative capacity of around 110 gigawatt hours, including non-PLI winners as well. So this excess capacity which is left, I think that's being worked on, and the extra money might be allocated to a new sunrise sector or to a company which is being waitlisted from an ACC point of view. Also, we as Invest India, we are working with the Piyush Goyalji's office, and we have identified top 100 companies in India. We have around 10 companies from an EV point of view. A letter is being sent from the Indian government to invite these companies to set up manufacturing plants in India and offer them whatever support is needed.
Sure, perfect. So maybe since we are running out of time, we already exhausted our time. Just one question to Mr. Shah and Mr. Deshpande about the collaboration opportunities for the Austrian companies with your organization. If any Austrian company would like to offer any services, or you would like to offer them, what are the options they have?
It works both ways, Ajay. We are open to have any kind of collaboration, maybe in battery technology, in BMS technology, and also since we are working on the on the generation and transmission distribution side as well, we will be open for any kind of opportunities that we can explore in Austria, as well as if they would want to have an entry into India, bringing some technology on the battery, on the cell chemistry, we'll be more than happy to explore.
Perfect. Mr.
Indeed,
Deshpande?
and likewise for us as well, we are very much open for collaboration with existing automotive OEMs and entities in the supply chain in the industry, because there's a lot that can be done together that actually adds up. More than 1 + 1 becomes 3, because there's a lot of know-how and ability to turn a product and very high quality product into reality in India today that could end up benefiting not just India but countries beyond India. So we are very happy to collaborate with both sides of the supply chain, both on the inbound as well as on the outbound side.
Sure. Thank you very much. With that, we end our panel discussion, and we move to
mention that if anybody here wants to reach out to Invest India, they can do so at auto@investindia.org.in.
Yes. So we have a couple of questions, and since we are running out of time, I will send you over the email to the respective speakers, and I hand over to Mr. Bernd Andersson to conclude the webinar. Thank you.
Thank you, Ajay. Thanks a lot to all our panelists for your expertise and for your time and sharing your knowledge with us. True pleasure. Also, a big thank you to our viewers at home or in their offices, so to speak. I'm happy to close out the session at this point. Just a quick heads up to some events that may be relevant to you and you might be able to be looking forward to. Here in Delhi, we will have an Austria exhibition or an Austria stall at the Plus India exhibition. Also, some of those companies are suppliers in the automotive sector, therefore quite relevant. And then very soon there will be an Austria showcase traveling all over India with Austrian companies visiting and meeting with Indian OEMs. I believe there is still the possibility for a very short-term sign up. So if you still would like to join this Austria showcase, please reach out to our office immediately or as soon as possible, as I believe just until Friday it will be possible to register. We will continue this webinar series with insights from Southern Asia, from India. Our next topic next month will be about drone technologies, a very interesting space to watch here in India. We'll also have a startup mission consisting of Indian startups and investors going to Austria in the mid of March. If you would like to connect with any stakeholders there, please reach out to us. And then last but not least, in April, there will be the 44th International Engine Symposium in Vienna, a international symposium where automotive players from all over the world are invited to meet and greet with their Austrian counterparts and their international collaborators. And so this is it from our side. Once again, thank you very much for spending your time with us. I wish you all the best for a good rest of the day and hope to see you soon. Of course, as mentioned before, if there are any questions open or you would like support, please reach out to us or any of the panelists directly. We'll be happy to connect. And with this, I'm closing the webinar. Thank you very much and have a good day.